Senator Miller.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that further proceedings on the roll call be dispensed with and the Sergeant at Arms be instructed to bring in the absent members.
To that motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, the motion does prevail. The Secretary will close the roll. Senator Miller.
Thank you, Mr. President. Is there a privilege report at the desk?
There is. The Secretary will read the report.
Senator Miller from the Subcommittee on Conference Committees recommends that the following senators be and are hereby appointed as a conference committee on Senate File number 4476. Senators Johnson, Kiffmeyer, and Isaacson. House File number 961. Senators Howe, Duckworth, and Dietzick. Senator Miller moves that the foregoing appointments be approved.
To that motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, the motion does prevail. Moving to the fifth order of business. Before moving to the fifth order of business, pursuant to Rule 12.5, Senator Limmer moves that the following members be excused for a conference committee on Senate File 2373 as of 11:30 a.m. Senators Limmer, Osmek, Matthews, Latz, and Bigham. Also, pursuant to Room 12.5, Senator Kiffmeyer moves that the following members be excused for a conference committee on House File 4293 at 1 p.m. Senators Kiffmeyer, Newman, Howe, Jasinski, and Dibble. All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Those opposed, the motion does prevail. Moving back to the fifth order, remaining on motions and resolutions, moving to the fifth order of business, the Secretary will read the reports.
Senator Miller from the Committee on Rules and Administration, to which was referred under Joint Rule 2.03, together with a committee report thereon, Senate File number 3541, a bill for an act relating to retirement. Reports the same back with a recommendation that Joint Rule 2.03 be suspended for all further proceedings on Senate File number 3541, and the report of the Committee on State and Government Finance and Policy and Elections, shown in the Journal for May 17, 2022, be adopted, that committee recommendation being the bill be amended, and when so amended, the bill do pass, and re-referred to the Committee on Finance. The amendments were adopted.
Senator Miller.
Thank you.
Excuse me, one more.
One more.
One more. Excuse me. Senator Miller from the Committee on Rules and Administration, to which was referred under Joint Rule 2.03, together with a committee report thereon, House File number 3346, a bill for an act relating to state government. Reports the same back with a recommendation that Joint Rule 2.03 be suspended for all further proceedings on House File number 3346, and that the report from the Committee on State Government, Finance and Policy and Elections, shown in the Journal for May 17, 2022, be adopted. That committee recommendation being that the bill be amended, and when so amended, the bill do pass and be referred to the Committee on Finance.
Now, Senator Miller.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that the committee reports read by the Secretary be adopted.
To that motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, the motion does prevail. Remaining under motions and resolutions, Senator Miller.
Thank you, Mr. President. I move that pursuant to Rule 26, I designate the following bills made special orders for immediate consideration. Members, the list is on your desk.
First bill up today, Senate File 2678, number 51 on general order, Senator Duckworth.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a brief explanation regarding Senate File 2678. This is a bill that would allow pharmacists to administer drugs through intramuscular and subcutaneous administration, just kind of a typical shot that you might receive, and to place drug monitoring devices. This is something that's allowed in 33 other states, including all the states that border Minnesota. The most commonly devices that this would apply to are devices for folks with diabetes, like a glucose monitor. This would increase access to care all across the state, especially in places of greater Minnesota who don't have as many facilities or healthcare providers in a close radius like we might experience here in the Twin Cities metro area. It's supported by all the stakeholders involved, and I'll give you some examples of what kind of shots that pharmacists would be able to help folks with. Insulin shots, shots for folks that have arthritis, B12 shots, as well as various shots for antibiotics. So it's a good bill. Will help a lot of people receive the care that they might want to receive that they're otherwise not able to do so currently. Thank you.
Senator Klein.
Well, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Duckworth, for bringing the bill. This is a good expansion of medical practice for the pharmacists in Minnesota, and a good way to expand patients access to monitoring devices like glucose monitoring devices for diabetes and so forth. It'll improve public health, and it's an appropriate expansion of pharmacist trade.
Further discussion of the bill? Seeing none, the Secretary will give the bill its third reading.
Senate File Number 2678, a bill for an act relating to health occupations.
Third reading. Any further discussion? Seeing none, the Secretary will take the roll on final passage of Senate File 2678. Call on Senator Duckworth to report members voting under Rule 40.7. Senator Duckworth.
Mr. President, Senator Chamberlain votes yes.
Chamberlain votes aye. Senator Duckworth.
Senator Coleman votes yes.
Coleman votes aye. Senator Duckworth.
Senator Howe votes yes.
Howe votes aye. Senator Duckworth.
Senator Lang votes yes.
Lang votes aye. Senator Duckworth.
Senator Newman votes yes.
Newman votes aye. Senator Duckworth.
Senator Senjum votes yes.
Senjum aye. Senator Duckworth.
Senator Tomasoni votes yes.
Tomasoni votes aye. Senator Duckworth.
Senator Pratt votes yes.
Pratt votes aye. Senator Duckworth.
Senator Rarick votes yes.
Rarick votes aye. Senator Duckworth.
I might have a couple more for you, but that's all I have now, Mr. President. Thank you.
Call on Senator Friends to report members voting under Rule 40.7. Senator Friends.
Thank you, Mr. President. I report Senator Eakin votes aye.
Eakin votes aye. Senator Friends.
Senator Fateh votes aye.
Fateh votes aye. Senator Friends.
Senator Hoffman votes aye.
Hoffman votes aye. Senator Friends.
Senator Latz votes aye.
Latz votes aye. Senator Friends.
Senator Putnam votes aye.
Putnam votes aye.
and Senator Wickland votes aye.
Wickland votes aye. Senator Duckworth.
Mr. President, Senator Anderson votes yes.
Anderson votes aye. Senator Duckworth.
Senator Kiffmeyer votes yes.
Kiffmeyer votes aye.
Thank you.
Senator Duckworth.
Mr. President, Senator Jasinski votes yes.
Jasinski votes aye. All members having voted with the desire to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There will be 66 ayes and no nays. Senate File 2678 does pass and is title agreed to. Second bill on the agenda today, House File 3765, number 71 on general order, Senator Westrom.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, this is the LCCMR bill, the Environmental Trust Fund, which is part of the lottery proceeds that go into the Environmental Trust Fund and allocates money to enhance, protect, preserve, conserve the natural resources of the state of Minnesota. Members, I passed out on the floor a copy of the constitutional amendment language, which you can read. Literally does talk about preserving, protecting, conserving, or enhancing the air, land, water, wildlife, fish, and natural resources of the state of Minnesota. This bill has $70 million delegated to about 90 different projects across the state of Minnesota, from the Arrowhead region down to the southwest, from the southeast all the way up to the northwest, and across the metro and central Minnesota. The $70 million, members, is divided into several different categories. To touch on a few of them, dealing with land acquisition, recreation, or habitat improvements at about $26 million, as well as another $10 million into restoration of habitats, about $7 million going into waters of the state of Minnesota, $4 million going into some AIS and other areas of the state to tackle some of those issues in the environment, as well as trails and other areas that people in Minnesota, whether they live in the metro area or rural, can go walk, hike, bike, or use their ATV to enjoy across our state as they go recreate, as they go bird watch, as they go enjoy the great outdoors. That's what this bill has in it, to target, focus on these environmental improvements across our state, as well as cover crops, Forever Green, which is an initiative out of the University of Minnesota working with cover crops and new farming practices to make that cost-effective, new technologies or new seeds that they develop, so these cover crop practices can become more part of the farming culture across the state of Minnesota, especially where there's erodible lands or lands that need to be protected with more forever growing cover crops. So members, that's what this bill is targeted on, the constitutional language that I passed out. Every one of these projects meets that constitutional language that was passed. This came through the process of the LCCMR, which ultimately did not ever make a final recommendation, but most of this bill, about 4/5 of it, is still representative of those projects that came through the commission process, although the commission did have a difference of opinion and ultimately never did pass a final recommendation for the legislature to work off of. But members, this spends the $70 million in the Environmental Trust Fund. It's also got some extensions that are needed on current projects that are being funded right now, but because of COVID or other delays, they've needed an extension for finishing their project or getting started on it, as well as some fixes, a fix for Senator Tomasoni and a community up in his district that has been working with the DNR on some grants from 1987, and this language helps remedy that issue so that community can move forward with some development around some of the parks that they have used prior monies through the DNR to enhance and improve some environmental opportunities for people in those communities. So, members, I'd urge your support so we can pass this bill, put the $70 million to good work for the environment across the state of Minnesota, parks, cover crops, as well as the waters of the great state of Minnesota. I urge your support.
Discussion.
Mr. President?
Senator Westrom.
Mr. President, I do have an amendment at the desk. What's the number on this?
Senator Westrom moves. A10? The A10 amendment. The
A10
Secretary
amendment,
will
Mr.
report the A10 amendment.
Senator Westrom moves to amend House File Number 3765, the unofficial engrossment as follows, page 17, delete. This is the A10 amendment.
To the A10 amendment, Senator Westrom.
Mr. President, members, the A10 amendment deals with some concerns that some have talked about is how much more land does the state of Minnesota buy in the process of the environmental funding that we pass. What this would do would just take about 241 acres or 240 acres out of being purchased, but it would also add in language that stipulates any land that's being purchased must have local units of government resolutions to support that in the future if the land is going to go off the taxpayer rolls. And so these dollars that would have gone into land purchases would be allocated to other projects for the environment, cover crops, as well as some of the tree drought. The DNR has had trees that have they've been asking for dollars to help replant and replace some of the drought-stricken seedlings and getting the forestation back up. Some of these dollars would go into that as well. So, Mr. President, I'd like to adopt the A10 amendment, and then we can continue debate on the bill.
Discussion of the A10 amendment. Senator Dietzig.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Westrom. Could you explain, we talked briefly beforehand, and so I understand that you were removing some projects that required land purchasing. I'm just kind of looking over the list right now. Are you removing all of the amount or a portion of the amount? So one of the questions I have is parks and, so the state DNR, Minnesota Park States and Trails acquisitions. So are you removing the entire amount from this bill or just a portion of it? And so for people to understand, the Parks and Trails acquisition, they just don't willy-nilly buy land. They have a list that they go through. They have criteria that they have to meet. And so some of this is when something becomes available. So if it's a continuation of a trail or if it's right next to a park, and so it has to meet certain criteria and it's strategic. So they have this strategic list, they are focused on it. It is not just something becomes available so they're going to buy it. It has to meet that criteria that it is a continuation of a trail or near a park that fits their larger plan. And so if Senator Westrom would yield, that is one of my questions is he removing all of the state parks and trails acquisition money or just a portion of it?
Senator Westrom will yield. Senator Westrom.
Mr. President, Senator from Hennepin, that money would all be removed for the state parks and trails, but Senator Dietzig, not for the local trails where there's easements purchased, but the land stays in private ownership. And Senator Dietzig, the one category that is under land acquisition that is remaining because it's through our local units of government is the local parks grants, because most of that is improving an existing park or developing a park within a community that may already own the property. But that language and those dollars are still in the bill.
Senator Dietzig.
Thank you, Senator Westrom. So again, to clarify, so it looks like right now, State Parks and Trails originally requested about $4 million. I think the bill that is in front of us has about 1.6 million, and if I'm correct, you're removing all of that 1.6 million. And then you're also removing 1 million from DNR, SNA habitat restoration, 3.5 million from the DNR drought response, but that might be a different issue because we paid farmers some stuff. I have a question on you're removing 2 million on the Healthy Soils Program Management. My question on that one is, I think the Healthy Soils Best Management Program is part of the Ag Conference Committee bill. And so are you removing it because there's funding in the Ag bill? Or is it because it's land acquisition?
So Senator Dietzick, in questions, if we could confine it to individual ones, because Senator Westrom obviously
Correct.
can't read what he may need to read as a
Yes.
result. So Senator Westrom, to that question.
Mr. President, Senator Dietzick, the healthy soils that you referred to and the DNR drought trees are being added. Those are some of the dollars being increased or added to in the amendment with other items you listed that are coming out, the SNA and the DNR dollars that you referred to. So that's where those dollars are going to.
Senator Dietzick.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. Senator Westrom, I was just looking at this, so sorry for the confusion. Staff did explain that to me. So I appreciate that you're keeping the money for the local grants because that does help our local communities, and our communities like that because that helps them. But I still think from an overall system, when people think of the lottery dollars, a lot of them think of parks and trails. So I am concerned on this amendment that you are removing that 1.6 million from the state parks and trails. That, again, when people think of the lottery dollars and you look at a lot of the advertisements on the lottery dollars, it's the state parks and trails. It's the loon and the state parks and trails. So that does concern me. But thank you for the clarification. And then I'll just clarify again, as I'm understanding this. You're adding 3.5 million for DNR drought response. You're adding 2 million into the Healthy Soils Management Program, which is a good program. I'm just questioning adding more money when it's in the Ag bill. And then, so somebody could say that that's supplanting. You're adding 700,000 to Forever Green, which is again another good program, and 700,000 to Developing Markets for Continuous Living Cover Crops. Both of those are also, I believe, in the Ag bill. So there is some stuff that's good in here. It's just questionable of if it's supplanting versus supplementing. And then I am concerned about the 1.6 million for the state parks and trails. Thank you.
Senator Dietzick, did you want a response from Senator Westrom to those? Nope, she is not requesting a question. I had Senator Marty first. Senator Marty.
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, I'd like to ask for a roll call on this amendment.
Roll call requested, roll call granted. Senator Marty.
Thank you, Mr. President. My concern is that Senator Westrom's bill is picking and choosing again what he wants from the LCCMR proposals. We've had this process in place. It's a decent process, and the bill as it is, he took some of them and then threw in some other provisions of his choosing, some of which are good provisions. I'm not arguing against them, but they were not things even before LCCMR, not even for consideration. That's the bill as he has it in front of us now. This amendment makes a lot more picking and choosing and taking away from the state parks and trails things that they carefully vet. They make the process, everything else, and then just saying, well, I think a floor amendment here, let's just try and take these out and put these in. When you're the author of the bill, you could be doing this anywhere along the process, and now you spring it on people on the floor. And you've had plenty of chances. We don't have any chances to amend a lot of this except here. But on this case, the bill itself already varies from a lot of the recommendations that were clearly ready to be made by LCCMR. And your choices, again, as I said, may not be bad ones. So those are things that we are going against the intent of the constitutional amendment. We're supplanting other funds rather than supplementing them. And that's why most of the proposals you had added in the bill weren't were not even vetted by LCCMR, and now you're adding more things, taking out things here. I think this is just the process argument alone. There's some good things in the amendment, some bad, but the process alone makes it a case that we should strongly oppose this amendment, and I urge you to do so.
Senator Torres-Ray.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have a question for Senator Westrom, if he will yield.
He will yield. Senator Torres-Ray.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm trying to find some of the language that the governor proposed and some of the arguments the administration made, DNR, before many groups with respect to the use of parks and trails and how, during the pandemic, obviously people wanted to go out and love our parks, use our parks. And obviously now we need to repair a lot of damage of overuse, and that funding was not provided. We did not support the governor on his request. I think that was about 15 million request. But my question from Senator Westrom is, how much are you cutting from parks and trails in the state of Minnesota with this amendment?
Senator Westrom.
Mr. President, Senator from Minneapolis, we are keeping the local parks and trails dollars in the bill. And so this is all new money that we'd be adding to that system. The state parks and trails is a $1.6 million number otherwise for largely land acquisition, but I don't have the other total number offhand. If there's others, I'll look it over here closer, but that local parks money is staying, Senator Torres-Ray.
Senator Torres-Ray.
Thank you, Mr. President. If we see this correctly, you have a 1.6 million cut. I just want to understand if that is correct, Senator Westrom.
Senator Westrom will yield. Senator Westrom.
Mr. President, Senator Torres-Ray, this is not in their budget already, so to call it a cut is not an accurate depiction. These are dollars that would be all new, no matter where they go, whether it goes to DNR trees or to state parks and trails, both environmental enhancements in different ways across the state, but this is all new money.
Senator Torres-Ray.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm just having a hard time understanding really what are we doing here. I encourage members not to vote for this amendment. Our parks and trails really need our support in every corner of the state of Minnesota. Every penny matters and counts. And we need to make absolutely sure that we support the governor's effort, DNR's effort to maintain and preserve our parks and to expand the use of parks. So please vote red.
Senator Herr.
Thank you, Mr. President. I appreciate my colleague, Senator Patricia Torres-Ray and Senator Dietzit for being a little more specific in detail. I'm just going to be a little general in asking Senator Westrom to yield.
Senator Westrom will yield. Senator Herr.
Senator Westrom, you and I sat in the LCCMR committee, and what came out from that is two proposals. One is the Hansen proposal, and the other is the Young proposal. How close is this amendment that you're asking us to vote for? How close is it to the two proposals that we remain undecided on?
Senator Westrom.
Mr. President, Senator Herr, this is a language that had brought to me talking to legislators representing concerns across the state in their own districts. This didn't go through the LCCMR process as far as whether this should pass or not. It wasn't part of the other proposals that which none of them made it through the commission in the first place. But this is listening to legislators and their constituent concerns that were brought to me, and that's where this language came from, and we have the ultimate responsibility and duty of deciding on how do we best spend the environmental trust fund dollars. Hope that answers your question, Senator Herr.
Senator Herr.
Mr. President, no more comment.
Senator Ingebretson.
Thank you, Mr. President. And as a co-chair of that committee, I have to tell you that there was an awful lot of work, as always, that goes into these coming up with the appropriations. And I think there's a concern about not getting the top number of votes, 12 votes out of the commission. That's not totally unusual. Generally, it's a little bit better than this, but the bottom line is that Senator Westrum's bill here reflects the majority of the commission. Now, that doesn't mean that everything is going to be satisfactory to everybody, but I know you've been hitting members, Mr. President, members, a lot of folks are hitting on the amount of monies being spent on parks and trails, and generally, LCCMR doesn't spend a whole lot on that. However, you should know that millions, literally millions and millions of dollars have been spent on state parks and trails. I think the number is 40 million over the last, 50 million over the last several bienniums per year, 50 million. So there's no shortage. There's no shortage, and never has been a shortage of parks and trail money. The years that I've been here, we can be proud to say that we've got literally hundreds of miles of different types of trails throughout the state of Minnesota for people to enjoy. And when they see that loon in the background behind the water, there's actually a trail. Now, I just made that up, obviously. But nevertheless, it is going to. And you have a lot of good things in here, like data forestry inventory. What a tremendous thing that is, to be able to have a nailed down inventory for our logging industry, a conservation reserve program that wasn't in the bill. That brings more federal money. And I noticed that the the Lessard-Sams bill, I think, had about $12 million worth of CRP money. You have ditch improvements here, groundwater storage and recovery database. All this stuff is very, very important to our environment. DNR drought response, replacement of drought seedlings. They had a terrible, terrible loss, as you know, the DNR with regards to seedlings, and this is going to help replenish that. Replacing failing septic systems. I'm a proponent that these failing septic systems that we have in our state is going to be one of our biggest challenges to keeping our water clean. That's why you're hearing about clean water and wastewater. Wastewater is a huge thing, and it just behooves us to take care of that. And of course, Pig's Eye Landfill Task Force, I know Senator Herr was concerned about that. I've talked to him about that, and he's got the it's a landfill in that area that's been contaminated for years that can be actually refurbished, I think, and probably put into some good public lands, and I think that's probably the output. But what I found this year, and I'll finish with this, is that we have a way of coming up with numbers, and I think you'll see what's being referred to as the Hansen bill versus the Young bill. The Hansen bill didn't go as far down and took in a lot less projects. This bill takes in more projects, more smaller projects, and cuts back on the larger appropriations. So members, this is a good environmental bill. As always, the hard work of the commission has done good work, and I would ask you to vote against this amendment and for the bill. Oh, I'm sorry, for the amendment.
Further discussion to the A10 amendment. Senator Herr.
Thank you, Senator Ingebretson, for some explanation there, and also Senator Westrom. My question is that, is it justifiable? And I'll just throw the question out there. I'm not asking my colleague to yield. My question is that it's justifiable for us to use the Environmental Trust Fund to pay for these individual projects. That's my concern. And my other concern is that as member of LCCMR, we spent a whole year talking about this, and when we are adding project into the quote of LCCMR, it appeared that we are not valuing the time spent to vet those projects that are part of this bill, and we are adding new projects to it. So now that I'm at it, I'm going to ask Senator Westrom, is it justifiable for us to spend the Environmental Trust Fund for this newly project that's been added to the LCCMR bill?
Senator Westrom will yield. Senator Westrom.
Well, Mr. President, Senator Herr, you know as well, on these projects, it's a variation of all kinds of reasons that one project maybe is better than another, or we have an ability to fund it. Last summer, Senator Herr, we didn't know about the DNR drought with the tree saplings that they came to the legislature last fall and winter with a request. We didn't know those projects and what the extent of. We didn't know there was a drought coming last spring or summer till we were already in it, and then you never know if it's going to end with the next rainstorm or not. In most cases, in many spots of the state, Senator Herr, the rain came too late, and farmers were injured by it, but this targets dollars to the DNR, the tree saplings, which they have requested from the legislature. They have received money priorly from the Environmental Trust Fund to do tree plantings, and so, but not always. And so, Senator Herr, some of those things you don't know, and we have to make decisions along the way as we have requests, as other things are brought to us. Forever Green and the cover crops, the healthy soils. The governor has brought those proposals in different versions to the legislature. The U of M has brought Forever Green proposals before, had requests to the legislature, as well as previously to the LCCMR to fund these projects to help develop more sustainable, more viable cover crops. And so, Senator Herr, I think they are absolutely right down the middle and justifiable to your question. A good use to protect, preserve, conserve, or enhance the great outdoors and the natural resources in Minnesota.
So, members, I think we're getting a little off onto the main bill itself. We are on the A10 amendment. Senator Marty.
Mr. President, just wanted to make a quick response. Senator Ingebrigtsen earlier was saying how the great work of the LCCMR and that we should, it sounded to me like, to paraphrase, he was sort of saying they've done great work, so let's keep it that way. And this amendment does the opposite of that. It's taking away their good work, substituting some judgment that comes to the Senate floor by the author of the bill, who could have done this much earlier, comes to us here today on the floor and says, let's substitute these. We'll take out these projects, shift the funding here, make these other changes in eminent domain, everything else. We're going to do that in substitution for what the work of the LCCMR is. If you think the process makes sense, if you think it's a wise way to allocate the funding that we committed to the voters we would do in that constitutional amendment many years ago, if you believe in that process, then we shouldn't be mucking around with the bill this way. I urge you to oppose the amendment.
Seeing no further discussion, the Secretary will take the roll on the A10 amendment. Call on Senator Friends to report members voting under Rule 40.7. Senator Friends.
Thank you, Mr. President. I report Senator Eakin votes no.
Eakin votes nay. Senator Friends.
I report Senator Fateh votes no.
Fateh votes nay. Senator Friends.
Senator Latz votes no.
Latz votes nay. Senator Friends.
Senator Putnam votes no.
Putnam votes nay. Senator Friends.
And Senator Wicklund votes no.
Wicklund votes nay. Call on Senator Jasinski to report members voting under Rule 40.7. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Anderson votes no.
Anderson votes nay. Senator Friends.
Senator Chamberlain votes aye.
Jasinski. Senator Jasinski. Chamberlain votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Coleman votes aye.
Coleman votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Lang votes aye.
Lang votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Newman votes aye.
Newman votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Senjum votes aye.
Senjum votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Tomasoni votes aye.
Tomasoni votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Rarick votes aye.
Rarick votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Dames votes aye.
Dames votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Anderson switches his vote to aye.
Anderson switches from nay to aye. All members having voted with the desire to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 33 ayes and 32 nays, the A10 amendment does pass and it is adopted. Further discussion and amendments to House File 3765. Senator Bach.
Mr. President, I have the A2 amendment.
Senator Bach moves the A2 amendment. The Secretary will report the amendment.
Senator Bach moves to amend House File number 3765, the unofficial engrossment as follows. Page 43 after line 3, insert. This is the A2 amendment.
To the A2 amendment, Senator Bach.
Well, Mr. Chairman and members, there was a previous appropriation from LCCMR to the town of Crane Lake up in my district in Voyageurs National Park. The town is planned to build a visitor center and a campground, and so the money was appropriated, and it was an old resort where the buildings had been torn down and the land had been plotted in a common interest community with 15 lots. And so when the town bought it, only one of the lots had actually been built on with a cabin. So the town bought it, but the community interest property is still in existence, so all the lots are 1/50, the person that owns the home owns 1/15 of every lot. Because that's the way the common interest plats work. So what this amendment does, and there's a provision in law that when LCCMR funds a project, if any land has to be sold that was funded by LCCMR, that the land has to be, the proceeds have to be remitted back to the trust. So what's happening here is we're dissolving the common interest community so that and no money will exchange. What ends up happening is the person that lives there in the cabin is going to relinquish his 1/15 that he has in all the other lots so the township can get control of the property. Right now, it's not possible to even get a building permit from the county because they don't own 100% of the 14 lots. So this will clear up the title, doesn't cost any money, and the project will be able to go forward. There's an agreement between the town of Crane Lake and the National Park Service to build a park headquarters building and a campground there. So all it does is clean up the title. The law says we have to do that before we can get a building permit to move forward with the project. Appreciate your support.
To the A2 amendment. All those in favor of the A2 amendment signify by saying aye. Those opposed, motion does prevail. The amendment is adopted. Further amendments and discussions. House File 3765. Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just multitasking here. I have the A11 amendment.
Senator Pappas moves the A11 amendment. The Secretary will report the amendment.
Senator Pappas moves to amend House File number 3765, the unofficial engrossment as follows. Page 43 after line 3, insert. This is the A11 amendment.
To the A11 amendment, Senator Pappas.
Actually, Mr. President and members, we know there's been a huge demand on the capital investment, on the bonding process to fund more projects, and our bonding bills have been pretty limited, and we didn't do one last year. So we're seeing some creep into other areas of the budget. So I do have some concerns that there are projects in this bill that are capital projects and haven't gone through the usual scrutiny that we require of our capital investment projects. So what this amendment would do is, for a capital project, it would just say that we have to have more information about it. We have to have the name of the entity that will own the capital, what the local financing will be, the local match will be, and documentation. And then also, for any proposal that is at least $750,000 or more, that must be reviewed by the Commissioner of Administration. I actually think it's supposed to be the Commissioner of Management and Budget, and if members are interested, we could change that in the amendment. So that's my amendment, and I would look forward to your support.
Discussion to the A11 amendment, Senator Westrom.
Mr. President, would the author yield?
She will yield. Senator Westrom.
Mr. President, Senator from Ramsey, can you just explain a little bit more? Is this is new language you're just bringing here today, so I want to understand it better, but the organizations that are applying for it, is it applied to just certain sectors, say agriculture or mining or forestry or cover crops, or would it be everybody that applies? If you could explain that a little bit more and the genesis of what is behind this amendment, where it came from, Senator Pappas, I think that'd be helpful for me to understand, and maybe the body as well.
Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Mr. President, and Senator Weston. I think one of our staff members just noticed and brought this to my attention because I'm interested in how our capital budget dollars are spent, how our bonding dollars are spent. And these are not bonding dollars, obviously, but they're still capital projects. We're building something. And it appears that in your process, your LCMR process, that they're just not getting the kind of scrutiny that they should have. And so what I'm requesting is that they have a very similar scrutiny to what our capital bonding projects have. That at least at minimum, we have to have certain information because these projects, who's going to own the project, what kind of local private user financing or other funding is there for the project? Will the project require new or additional state funding? And just documentation of who's requesting the project, who's the fiscal agent, is there a resolution in support of the project? And then secondly, if the proposal does reach a threshold of $750,000 for construction costs, that requires pre-design, there must be a statement that the required pre-design has been completed and submitted to the Commissioner of Admin. As I mentioned, it could also be the Commissioner of Management and Budget for their review and approval. And construction costs would include pre-design, design, and construction management costs. So, Senator Westland, I don't know that you've ever, Westrom have not served on the Capital Bonding Committee, but many of us have, and this is a very common process.
Senator Westrom.
Mr. President, thank you. Senator Pappas, if you'd yield for another follow-up.
She will yield. Senator Westrom.
Mr. President, Senator Pappas, can you explain the threshold of $750,000? Is the intent it would only apply to applicants over $750,000 in total cost or monies received from the LCCMR or the trust fund? Or explain that a little bit more as we try to go through this and digest it here on the floor.
Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Mr. President, and Senator Westrom. The $750,000 is, we thought that would be reasonable because it approximately aligns with the standard for other state-funded capital projects. Their state law does exempt certain kinds of capital projects like trails, parking lots, campgrounds from the pre-design and energy conservation requirements. So that just seemed like a reasonable number, $750,000. But other than those projects I mentioned, it would apply to all the others.
Senator Westrom.
Mr. President, Senator Pappas, thank you for those answers. So just to be clear, Senator Pappas, if you'd yield for one follow-up question.
She will yield. Senator Westrom.
Mr. President, Senator Pappas, so in short, the smaller projects being requested wouldn't fill this out, but the projects over 750, if I'm understanding your explanation and the language here correctly, would be. So if you can answer that, Senator Pappas, just in short, but then any entities like the DNR, state agencies, U of M, other nonprofits, which of them are going to have to fill this out and not fill it out? Who's going to be exempt from it? Are we going to have everybody fill it out, even if they're a state agency or a local unit of government? Maybe you could expand on that a little bit more as well, Senator Pappas.
Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Mr. President, and Senator Westrom. All capital projects would provide the information. We would make sure that we had the information, but only the projects over $750,000 would have to be reviewed by the Commissioner of Admin.
Senator Westrom.
So, Mr. President, Senator Pappas, this is the first time I'm reviewing this proposal. There's parts of it that seem to be maybe reasonable or maybe good government. Senator Pappas, seems like it would be something we'd be open to adding, subject to, we might need to find out more details as we go along here. Department of Admin might have to review all these, so Senator Pappas, I'm wondering if there's a fiscal note that would end up going along with this. There are some questions that come along with this, but I think the spirit of this maybe makes some sense. And so, Senator Pappas, if you're willing to work with me on this, I'm willing to look at this as we continue along. We might find some pitfalls that we aren't identifying here on the floor, but Senator Pappas, would you be willing to work on this as the bill moves along if there's questions or issues or concerns that come up? But otherwise, I think this is language that we could try to work with and accept and try to move forward with. Senator Pappas, if you could answer that question, please.
Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Mr. President, and Senator Westrom, thank you very much for your openness, and I'd be happy to work with you. And I just wanted to bring this to your attention that it's important that we carefully review these projects, which is a process that we've always done in capital investment. So I think it's a good process for you also to consider, and I'm happy to withdraw the amendment.
Senator Pappas withdraws the A11 amendment. Further discussion and amendments to House File 3765. Senator Dietzick.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the A4 amendment.
Senator Pappas moves Senator Dietzick moves the A4 amendment. The Secretary will report the amendment.
Senator Dietzick moves to amend House File Number 3765, the unofficial engrossment as follows. Delete everything. This is the A4 amendment.
To the A4 amendment, Senator Dietzick.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, you've heard us talk about the Hansen proposal and the Young proposal. So there's about 17 members on the LCCMR. We meet many times over the summer, into the fall, into winter. I think we even met in January this year, and debate these projects. We have proposals from all over the state. We have a lot of very energetic people come and apply for this, local community groups, local school groups, and a lot of research. And it's kind of like going to college, because you do learn a lot, and it's rewarding because we find out how much research and proposals and projects are going on around the state. And you know, it is rewarding that we are a state that has this, that we are putting money towards conserving our environment and protecting our environment. We usually come to an agreement. I think Senator Dames, who's not here right now, but I think he has stood up and has talked about possibly on the floor and then in the LCCMR on how, you know, this is a collaborative work. The end product is usually a compromise. I agree with him. I think when we passed this bill before, there are projects that come through and come out of the LCCMR that I don't agree with, but there's also projects that I do. It has always been a compromise. This past year, we had a lot of really good, healthy, serious debates because we had so many good projects. And what number do we cut that off at? How much do we fund each of these projects? And so it was a lot of really good, healthy debate. And in the end, we had several different compromise proposals offered, and so that's why you hear us talk about the Hansen proposal, and you hear us talk about the Young proposal. And both of them just tweaked how much money different projects were getting. When the LCCMR bill was first introduced, I think it's Senate File 3765, Senator Westrom introduced the Young proposal. And so is what this A4 amendment does, it takes us back to the Young proposal. I'm offering this as an amendment because there was so much work that the LCCMR Commission puts into the bill that I think we should go back and at least have the opportunity to vote on that. The proposals that Senator Westrom has added, I'm not saying that they are bad proposals. Several of them are bills. Several of them are bills that are actually up for discussion in either the Environment Omnibus Bill or the Ag Omnibus Bill. So they are good projects, but we're also removing some good projects that, again, worked through this commission and got, you know, some degree of votes and support from the commission. So this just takes us back to the closest we've came to on the commission as the compromise proposal to move forward. And so with that, I ask for your support for the Young proposal. It was the compromise proposal on LCCMR, and I ask for your support on the A4 amendment.
To the A4 amendment, Senator Westrom.
Mr. President, members, I would rise in opposition to this amendment, urge a no vote on this amendment for a few reasons. Briefly, members, this would take out projects, both Republican and Democrat. Senator Herr, Pig's Eye Landing is an important project in his district that's in this bill, would be removed with this amendment. Members, DNR drought tree relief that's in this bill would be removed from this bill with this amendment. It would also undo all the committee work that went through into this bill with the legislative process. And as Senator Dietzick also brought up, the commission never did bring forward a recommendation under the process that they have. There was never sufficient votes to bring forward a complete package or process. This bill still has 4/5 of that package, or the last package that the commission came closest to. And that's 4/5 of the language that's in Senator Dietzick's amendment as well. But undoing all the committee work that the legislature did on this from the beginning of its introduction to today, as well as taking out both Democrat and Republican projects that have been brought forward as important efforts as well for the environment, are all the reasons I would urge a no vote. Let's move forward with the bill as it's been put together so far and pass it through the Senate. Let's go to conference and work out any of the differences we have with the House bill.
Mr. President.
Senator Ingebretson was next up. I was waiting for him to get his microphone. Senator Ingebretson.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd ask for a roll call.
Roll call requested. Roll call granted. See no further discussion. The Secretary will take the roll on the A4 amendment. Calling Senator Jasinski to report members voting under Rule 40.7. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to yield to Senator Friends.
Senator Friends to report members voting under Rule 40.7. You two are trying to play a Jedi mind trick on the President today, aren't you? Senator Friends.
Thank you, Mr. President. And first, let me extend my thanks to Senator Jasinski for helping this process move forward. Senator Eakin votes aye.
Eakin votes aye. Senator Friends.
Senator Fateh votes aye.
Fateh votes aye. Senator Friends.
Senator Latz votes aye.
Latz votes aye. Senator Friends.
Senator Putnam votes aye.
Putnam votes aye. Senator Friends.
Senator Kent votes aye.
Kent votes aye. Senator Friends.
And Senator Wickland votes aye.
Wickland votes aye. I now call on Senator Jasinski to report members voting under Rule 40.7. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Anderson votes no.
Anderson votes nay. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Chamberlain votes no.
Chamberlain votes nay. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Coleman votes no.
Coleman votes nay. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Lang votes no.
Lang votes nay. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Senjum votes no.
Senjum votes nay. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Rarick votes no.
votes nay. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Tomasoni votes no.
Tomasoni votes nay. All members having voted with the desire to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 30 ayes and 34 nays, the motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. Further amendments and discussion. Senator Marty.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have the A6 amendment at the desk.
Senator Marty moves the A6 amendment. The Secretary will report the amendment.
Senator Marty moves to amend House File Number 3765, the unofficial engrossment as follows, page 2, line 9, delete. This is the A6 amendment.
To the A6 amendment, Senator Marty.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm going to make one more attempt to try and reflect the will of the LCCMR and the process that we committed to the voters we were going to use. This amendment would simply take out all the projects that were added in Senator Westrum's bill that didn't go through the LCCMR. It does the rest of the money that would be saved, about $15 million, it puts bulk of that into the Emerging Issues Fund at LCCMR, and then it also fully funds the Prion Research Project at the U of M that the LCCMR had selected, and there's some funding in the bill, but this would fully fund it. And I'd argue that the urgency for giving the full funding is increased even more now that we've seen CWD spreading outside in new areas of the state. I think up in Grand Rapids area, we've seen expansion there. I think this is an issue. If we're not going to stop the deer farming operations from expanding further, which I think is a mistake, but the least we can do is fund the Prion research to help at that angle of it, and this bill would do that. But bottom line is, this is saying one more time, let's try and do what LCCMR has. And I want to point to a handout I don't think he's referred to yet, but Senator Dibble handed out a column from a Star Tribune and outdoors writer Dennis Anderson, in which he talks about what's being done in this bill is more brazenly still. What they're doing here in this bill is putting in new programs that were not submitted and not reviewed. Thank you, Mr. President. That were not reviewed by LCCMR. And columnist Anderson says, as importantly, by law, LCCMR allocations are supposed to supplement Minnesota resources funding, not supplant it. Otherwise, as voters intended when they approved lottery money for the environment, no conservation gains would be made by all the new spending. In others, who are just taking it out of other projects that should be in the state budget, it's not going to happen. And the columnist points out that the Senate majority chose to allocate no money this session from the General Fund for Conservation and Environmental Protection. Consequently, dedicated funds since his Environmental Natural Resources Trust Fund are ripe for rating to pay for projects that otherwise would be paid for out of the general fund. That summarizes very neatly what's happening in this bill, and that's why I want to make the point that what Senator Dietzick was trying to do, what a lot of us are trying to say is, let's reflect what we committed to the voters to do. Let's reflect what LCCMR's good work is. Don't say, oh, they do great work, but we're going to really fix it up and add our own projects, take out what we don't want. That's not what this is about, and I urge your support for this. I urge you to read the handout that Senator Dibble passed out, and I ask for your support in a roll call on the bill.
Roll call requested. Roll call granted. Senator Westrum.
Mr. President, I would rise in opposition and urge a no vote on this amendment. Senator Marty, the $1.3 million additional dollars to the Prions, there is already $3 million in the bill towards Prions, the CWD type of research. That's a laudable project, Senator Marty, certainly something we can continue to talk about. Maybe there's a way to get additional funding for it as a priority you've brought forward here. Certainly that testing is important. That's why we're already funding it in this bill. But adopting this amendment would add to that, but it would take away several of the other projects, as I mentioned before, Pig's Eye Landing, the project in Senator Herr's district, the drought trees for the DNR seedlings, the Forever Green projects for cover crops, as well as other healthy soil options. And so, members, I would urge a no vote.
Senator Dibble.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, members, at the risk of repeating the arguments that Senator Marty made in support of his amendment, but it bears repeating because it's very, very important. Mr. President, at the time the state legislature passed the law placing the question on the ballot that was voted on by the citizens of Minnesota, establishing the lottery and establishing the Environmental and Natural Resources Trust Fund. I believe the law was passed in 1987 and the vote was held in 1988. A law that in that very same bill, 116p.03 in Minnesota statutes was also passed. And it says, the trust fund may not be used as a substitute for traditional sources of funding, environmental and natural resources activity, but the trust fund shall supplement the traditional sources. Mr. President, Senator Westrom did a marvelous job of citing these fantastic projects that he rolled into his bill. And to a project, I probably agree with him that they're all great. I've been a chief author of the Forever Green Initiative, which has been a general fund appropriation in years past, sending money over to the University of Minnesota to research and to support cover crops and sustainable agriculture, things like that. Aggregate resource mapping is coming from the governor's supplemental budget. I support the governor. You know, I'm Team Walls. I think that's great. But if you look, Mr. President and members, at this list of projects, they all had their origins as individual member bills. From Senator Howe for leaded gasoline water contamination study, Senator Senjum, living snow fences, forest inventory data, Senator Eichhorn, CRP incentives, Senator Ingebrigtsen, Senator Newman's ditch maintenance grants, Senator Weber, groundwater database, Senator Westrom, ring dikes, Senator Weber, healthy soils, Senator Dames, Forever Green. Good on Senator Dames. Well, we do have a DFL bill here, one for Senator Herr, and we have some of the governor's elements, but it's a vast array of Republican projects, all may be very worthwhile, but we can't escape the fact that we're violating the law. And when we put the question to the people of Minnesota back in 1988, the language of the law was passed. And so they knew what they were voting on was not simply, let's simply change the source and divert the source of funding for environmental purposes, but the proposition was, let's add to what we're doing in Minnesota. Let's not simply shift money over from the efforts and the initiatives that we're already undertaking, but let's do more. And let's do it from this dedicated effort of selling lottery tickets and devoting a certain percentage of the lottery proceeds for that purpose. The other concern, members, as touched upon by Dennis Anderson in the article that I had distributed that Senator Marty referred to, is the fact that we have this process, the LCCMR process. These projects are submitted and then considered and vetted, and then there is a process by which work plans are then submitted so that then LCCMR staff and the LCCMR Commission can make sure the projects were completed as intended. And all of these pet projects for all these members, all worthwhile, not diminishing or trying to suggest that they aren't fantastic ideas, but they're all exempted, specifically in the language of Senator Westrom's bill, from having to complete work plans. And so not only do they completely supersede or jump over the LCCMR process, but then there's even at the back end no ability for ensuring that these environmental trust fund dollars are used in a manner that they are intended. We have no ability to follow up, no work plan, and no ability to check that we're in fact spending these public trust funds entrusted to us in a manner in which they were intended. So, Mr. President, I would encourage a green vote for the Senator Marty amendment. Thank you.
Senator Ingebretson.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. There's absolutely no supplanting in this bill. This is all new money. There might be a phase one or a phase two, or a phase two or a phase three of a project. I don't even know that. Didn't look that closely. I don't recall any of that, but sometimes we have to come back and finish a project. But those are new projects, members. They're not existing projects that the DNR has or the MPCA or anybody. This is all new money. With regards to with regards to the letter that has been referred to by Dennis Anderson, sports writer, and I know Dennis Anderson very well. I've done several articles with him. He's been interviewed by him several times. And how quickly I think sometimes authors are willing to forget and point the finger, and actually he's pointing the finger pretty strongly at myself and Senator Westrom, along with Republicans on the committee, about his displeasure of what's going on. But he must have forgot about some years back when the DFL proposal came over with $6 to $7 million for park funding where it didn't belong in the legacy bill. Myself, along with the leadership at that time, wrote a letter to Governor Dayton, along with the sportsmen, and said, that is the wrong place for those dollars to be coming from. We encouraged the governor to veto it. He did. And those of you that remember House Member Phyllis Kahn, she was very upset with that, but nevertheless, those are some of the, I guess, the early years of, we were stretching and yawning ourselves out and trying to figure out where that money went. But that was a real violation of it. And at that time, this Republican stood up for it, and it went in the right direction. And from that point forward, I think I had a pretty darn good working relationship with the opposite side of the aisle, and Senator Leader Poggemiller at that time, for one, and Senator Cohen. We had a great working relationship, and we were, I think, all dedicated on putting the money where the money is actually supposed to go to, as well as what's in the Constitution. I also remember a time when in 2011 and 12, when I had my first opportunity to be in charge of the Legacy Committee, there was talk about building a new stadium in Minneapolis, Viking Stadium. And they came along, and with this pot of money, when there was no money in the budget, they wanted $50,000 to put artwork from local Minnesota artists in a hallway so they could help pay for that stadium, or a small portion of that stadium. And I stood up and absolutely said, absolutely not. That's not what the people voted for. They did not vote to help build a stadium. And that went away. That faded away. Just that one comment alone. Dennis Anderson is a good friend of mine. We've done several stories. We'll be doing no more, I guess, from this point forward. But I think he's sometimes the writers can make it sound a lot worse than it is, but understand that there's nobody that cares more about the environment than myself. And I can't speak, but I guess I will speak on behalf of Senator Westrom. The same thing. We both do care and will continue to do so. So I would ask for a red vote on the amendment.
Seeing no further discussion, the Secretary will take the roll on the A6 amendment. I call on Senator Friends to report members voting under Rule 40.7. Senator Friends.
Thank you, Mr. President. I report Senator Eakin votes aye.
Eakin votes aye. Senator Friends.
Senator Fateh votes aye.
Fateh votes aye. Senator Friends.
Senator Latz votes aye.
Latz votes aye. Senator Friends.
Senator Lopez Franzen votes aye.
Lopez Franzen votes aye. Senator Friends.
Senator Putnam votes aye.
Putnam votes aye. Senator Friends.
And Senator Wickland votes aye.
Wickland votes aye. Senator Friends, do we have yeses for Eakin and Fateh? The front desk does not have this recorded. I believe the answer is yes.
Thank you, Mr. President. Again, report Senator Eakin votes aye.
Eakin votes aye. Senator Friends.
And Senator Fateh votes aye.
Fateh votes aye. Call on Senator Jasinski to report members voting under Rule 40.7. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Anderson votes no.
Anderson votes nay. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Chamberlain votes no.
Chamberlain votes nay. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Coleman votes no.
Coleman votes nay. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Lang votes no.
Lang votes nay. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Senjum votes no.
Senjum votes nay. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Rarick votes no.
Rarick votes nay. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Tomasoni votes no.
Tomasoni votes nay. All members having voted with the desire to vote? The secretary will close the roll. There being 32 ayes and 32 nays, the motion does not prevail. The amendment is not adopted. Further amendments and discussion. Senator Pappas.
Thank you, Mr. President. I misunderstood the conversation earlier, so I'd like to re-offer the A11 amendment.
Senator Pappas re-offers the A11 amendment. The secretary will report the amendment.
Senator Pappas moves to amend House File Number 3765, the unofficial engrossment as follows. Page 43 after line 3, insert. This is the A11 amendment.
To the A11 amendment, Senator Pappas.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Westrom, for agreeing to work on this. Thank you.
Senator Westrom.
Mr. President, members, I rise to support the amendment and continue to work on this concept with Senator Pappas. Wasn't clear in the communication before. She withdrew it. I talked to her, and she's reoffering it to add it to the bill, and I support that.
All those in favor of the A11 amendment signify by saying aye. Those opposed, the motion does prevail. The amendment is adopted. Further amendments and discussion to House File 3765. Seeing none, the Secretary will give the bill its third reading.
House File Number 3765, a bill for an act relating to natural resources, appropriating money from the Environment and Natural Resources Trust Fund.
Third reading. Any further discussion? Senator Herr.
Mr. President, all due respect, and you might enjoy this, but my own perspective of this bill is like a twilight zone for the LCCMR because it's twist and turn and put project all over the place. So I don't know what I'm going to vote yet, but I just thought I'd make that point. I know Senator Westrom worked very hard on this and being very creative about it. I know our statute do talk about the right way of using the trust fund is for projects that have long-term benefit to our Minnesota environment and natural resource. So just want to make that point, and thank you for allowing me to speak.
Senator Torres-Ray.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, members. I want to call your attention to a decision you're about to make, and your vote really needs to reflect how you feel about some of the provisions and the laws that we put in place. We actually created the LCCMR to make sure that we have bipartisan collaboration, that we bring experts from the community, that we hear from all over the state to figure out what projects merit support, what projects do we need to fund, what projects are urgent. And through that process, there is a group of experts, including us, that are appointed to that commission that they make a decision, and they bring those recommendations to us precisely to avoid what we are doing today, which is the chair of a committee will create his own bill, and in the words of Senator Westrom, he said, well, I listened to my constituents. My understanding is that there are only one bill for the minority. The rest of the projects are good projects, but they are projects that were selected by a selective group. And that's that. That's a selection that was made without a process, and a process that is in policy. I really encourage you to think about the precedent for the future. Because when you make a decision like that, you empower a chair, you empower a small group of people to say, you know what, we don't need to listen to these groups that we put in place, that we appoint, because if we don't get the votes there, we just come and redo the project. So the process. It could very well happen that, in fact, a couple of members in those commissions say, well, let's don't vote for it, so we get to do our own bill by ourselves, without input from the community, without a process. So I encourage you to think about a precedent that is very dangerous. I don't want that to happen. Whomever is in the majority, Democrats or Republicans, we need to respect the process that we put in place. That is what we did here. We have a commission, they make recommendations, and then we follow their advice. If not, just get rid of the LCCMR and just do your thing like we do with other bills in here. We have committee hearings, and we do the process for education, healthcare, transportation, and move on. But I want you to think very carefully about this. Of course, I'm voting no on this bill. And I do want us to respect the process today and in the future. Thank you, Mr. President, members.
Final discussion to House File 3765 as amended. Senator Westrom.
Mr. President, members, thank you for the debate, the discussion. We've went through the bill thoroughly, so in the interest of brevity, in the interest in the honor of Senator Tomassoni, it's a good bill. Vote yes.
Seeing no further discussion, the Secretary will take the roll on final passage of House File 3765 as amended. I call on Senator Friends to report members voting under Rule 40.7. Senator Friends.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Eakin votes aye.
Eakin votes aye. Senator Friends.
Sorry, give me a second, Mr. President.
Yep. Senator Friends.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I report Senator Fateh votes no.
Fateh votes nay. Senator Friends.
Senator Lopez Franzen votes no.
Lopez Franzen votes nay. Senator Friends.
Senator Putnam votes no.
Putnam votes nay. Senator Friends.
And Senator Wickland votes no.
Wickland votes nay. Call on Senator Jasinski to report members voting under Rule 40.7. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Anderson votes no.
Anderson votes nay. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Chamberlain votes aye.
Chamberlain votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Coleman votes aye.
Coleman votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Lang votes aye.
Lang votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Senjum votes aye.
Senjum votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Tomasoni votes aye.
Tomasoni votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Rarick votes aye.
Rarick votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Rosen votes aye.
Rosen votes aye. All members having voted with the desire to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 36 ayes and 28 nays. House File 3765 as amended does pass, and its title agreed to. Next bill, members, is House File 4221, number 52 on general order. Senator Limmer.
Thank you, Mr. President. House File 4221 is a bill that was brought to us by Hennepin County. This bill allows Hennepin County to, or via a yearly resolution, establish reasonable expenses as per diem and mileage costs to be paid to members of their board, advisory commissions, and other commissioned boards. Until this bill, Hennepin was the only county not allowed to disperse funds to their board in this way. There has been other counties that had that restriction, but over close to 50 years, those restrictions have gone away. Hennepin County is the only one that has restrictions, and they request that they be treated in the same manner as the rest of every other county in the state. I'll stand for corrections, Mr. President.
Discussion to House File 4221. Seeing none, the Secretary will give the bill its third reading.
House File 4221, a bill for an act relating to local government.
Third reading. Any further discussion? Seeing none, the secretary will give the bill, will give House File 4221 its roll call vote. I call on Senator Friends to report members voting on Rule 40.7. Senator Friends.
Thank you, Mr. President. I report Senator Eakin votes aye.
Eakin votes aye. Senator Friends.
Senator Fateh votes aye.
Fateh votes aye. Senator Friends.
Senator Lopez Franzen votes aye.
Lopez Franzen votes aye. Senator Friends.
Senator Putnam votes aye.
Putnam votes aye. Senator Friends.
And Senator Wickland votes aye.
Wickland votes aye. I call on Senator Jasinski to report members voting under Rule 40.7. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Anderson votes aye.
Anderson votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Chamberlain votes aye.
Chamberlain votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Lang votes aye.
Lang votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Tomasoni votes aye.
Tomasoni votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Rarick votes aye.
Rarick votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Goggin votes aye.
Goggin votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Rosen votes aye.
Rosen votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Senjum votes aye.
Senjum votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Coleman votes aye.
Coleman votes aye. All members having voted, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 66 ayes and 1 nay, House File 4221 does pass and its title agreed to. Next bill on the agenda is Senate File 4082, number 47 on general order. Senator Matthews.
Thank you, Mr. President and members. Senate File 4082 is a very simple bill relating to nuclear energy. Members, if you look at the MISO energy mix today and what the energy sources are powering our energy in real time, right now, coal and natural gas are both contributing about 35–36% each, so about 70% together. Nuclear, about another 14%, totaling close to 84–85%. Wind and solar together, both barely top 10%. And there's been a pressure to move from the 85% part of our fuel mix to the 10% part, which I don't believe is sustainable, even with all the advancements in wind and solar that we've made in recent years. So this bill is going to be a small carve-out to the nuclear moratorium that we have in the state of Minnesota. And it would allow companies to bring proposals to the Public Utilities Commission for small-scale nuclear-powered electric generating reactors of 100 megawatt size or less per unit. And what this will do is this will keep the moratorium in place for purposes of the large normal nuclear power plants that we're used to, such as Prairie Island and Monticello. But there is new technology that is being developed and is soon on the horizon of many different ways to build much smaller nuclear reactors that are on much smaller land footprints, and some very, very creative and innovative technology for how these are used for even more advanced safety precautions that are built into these systems. And I believe that it is time to allow Minnesota to step into that next generation of discussing whether these types of reactors would meet our energy needs. And so all this will do is put a small carve-out in place for these units that are 100 megawatts or less, while leaving the rest of the moratorium in place. We had a very good debate in the Energy Committee on this, and to my pleasure, it received bipartisan support in the Energy Committee. So with that, members, I'd be happy to answer any questions and would urge support on Senate File 4082. Thank you, Mr. President.
Discussion to the bill. Senator Marty.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Senator Matthews, this bill is a smaller carve-out than the other one you or others have been trying, and we put in another bill. I guess my points are about the same thing. We have no solution to the waste. We have no solution to the issues of safety in terrorist times. I worry about small projects not having the same security that the big plants have. And probably the biggest one, we haven't dealt with the cost. People point out that, well, the big ones aren't happening because they're way, way, way too expensive. The small ones are just way, way, way too expensive to generate electricity on a much smaller scale. They're still the most expensive kind of new power supply we can consider. I'm absolutely in agreement that we have to be moving to carbon-free electrical generation, but we got to do that not 20 years from now. And the proposals, if you came up with a new small nuclear proposal that you thought was ready to go tomorrow morning, it's going to be 20 years. And that's too late to deal with the climate issue. And in terms of the nuclear generating thing, the same point I'd make on the full repeal of the moratorium on the small ones is we keep being told these are such great deals. Well, where are they being built? I know they're exploring at least some small-scale ones, but most states don't have a nuclear moratorium in place. I think like at least 30 or 40 of them don't have a nuclear moratorium in place, so they don't have this obstacle in place, so why aren't they being built if they're such a great idea? And I'll stick to the point that we've gone over many times here, and that is that nuclear power was supposed to be a cheap form of power. It's getting more expensive every year. New technologies we keep being promised, and they're going to come someday maybe, and I'm not going to hold my breath, but hey, at that time we can repeal the moratorium. If we have safe and affordable and clean and reliable nuclear power, then we can repeal the moratorium. But repealing the moratorium isn't going to make it happen, and there have been no breakthroughs on storage, disposal, no breakthroughs on the security issues, no breakthroughs on the cost efficiency of it. And again, if you were willing to try the thing we had last time where I suggested ratepayer protection, where ratepayers couldn't be forced to pay for a project until it actually started generating power, I mean, that would, then you got a different kind of moratorium in place, and that is there are no investors willing to invest in it. So, Mr. President, members, this amendment, this bill isn't going to, I oppose it because I don't think the industry has come up with solutions to any of the problems we have. I'm open to listening to it. I actually supported your bill to do a study of nuclear power, because to fund a study of that because you think it's going to show there's some good things happening. Well, let's study it. But just repealing the moratorium doesn't make any sense, and nothing's changed from the past, and this moratorium is not the reason we don't have new nuclear power plants being constructed. The reason has to do with cost.
Further discussion? Senator Frentz.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Senator Matthews. You are correct. We had some robust discussions in the Energy Committee on this, and we have talked to members this year about our goals for climate change. Our number one goal has to be decarbonizing, and for that reason I have conceded the point that nuclear, whatever else its difficulties, is a carbon-free source. We also discussed a study of advanced nuclear, which this is a little different as it repeals the moratorium, but I'll tell you what I'll do, Senator Matthews. I'll vote yes on this if you allow me to point out that according to the U.S. Energy Information Agency, that wind alone is 22% of Minnesota's generation right now. And my point is, we are able to move forward substantially with renewables. That is a safer and more cost-effective alternative. Unsubsidized wind is still the lowest cost when we can generate it. So for that reason, members, I still have the same hesitation about nuclear waste, and I still offer to any member of this chamber, the folks at Prairie Island would be happy to take the nuclear waste near them and put it in your district. If you have any interest in that, please see me offline. We also still have concerns about safety. Nuclear's had some disasters, and we have to be careful, even at small nuclear, that we watch the public safety. They're going to forget all about the rates if we have something go wrong. With that, Madam President, with that, Senator Matthews, I'm a yes vote on the bill. I appreciate the discussion and looking forward to the information on cost. Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Osmek.
Thank you, Madam President. Well, members, this really is a good bill. And I know there's many people in this room that don't like nuclear energy. I get that. A couple of points to be made. If the proposals for small nuclear don't meet criteria through the Public Utilities Commission. The Public Utilities Commission is there to protect the ratepayer from being gouged on bad projects. So if you want to make the decision here so that the PUC cannot make the decision there, I guess you would vote no on this. Because ultimately, the PUC is restricted right now from any discussion of nuclear. And I've been multiple times on bills and presented bills to lift the nuclear moratorium, if only to let the Public Utilities Commission consider the options. And that doesn't necessarily mean we're building one tomorrow, or next year, or 10 years from now. But to not at least have that on the table for our future, I believe is short-sighted. It's very short-sighted. Now, to the nuclear technology, the small nuclear technology, we went to Idaho National Labs as the Legislative Energy Commission about 2.5 years ago. We are going back there in June. Right now, we have, I think, 1 staff member and 6 Republicans going. Last time we had 1 Democrat go. He's no longer with us here in the Senate. I don't have anybody from the minority party coming on this trip. And it isn't just about the small nuclear technology. It's really amazing the technology changes they're having. They're using less fuel, smaller fuel, in these multiple scenario modular, the modular type of technology that they're coming up with, that is actually going to be they're looking to go online with this within the next 5 years. Minnesota should be at the front end of this. And I know a lot of people in here like to talk about Fukushima. Last time I checked, I mean, Senator Bach, you probably could tell us how many times we've had a tsunami on Lake Superior. But folks, this is cutting edge technology. This is the future. Yes, there's waste. Just so everybody knows, every energy technology has waste. That includes windmills. Those turbines just don't degrade. That fiberglass just doesn't degrade. They're fixed. I've been to trips to see the repairs that they do to wind turbines. And yes, Senator Friends is absolutely right. Wind technology has come down in price. But if we're talking about the most expensive per megawatt cost right now to ratepayers in Minnesota, Community Solar Garden blows them all out of the water. If we're here talking about how expensive nuclear is, that we won't even allow it to be considered for a certificate of need, community solar gardens are 10 times, in many cases, 10 times the cost. You should be banning those today. We're not doing that. All we're asking members is to have an opportunity to let the Public Utilities Commission and probably one and only one provider, probably Xcel Energy only, to be able to use this as part of their integrated resource plan. That is all, so that they can prepare for this. And for the Iron Range, this is where we'll talk about the member who's not here. Senator Simonson went on that trip with us. With these modular technology reactors on as small a footprint as 100 acres, you could get rid of the coal-fired power plant on the power that's up on the Iron Range. Because folks, in order for us to process taconite and mine for iron ore, that's all done by electricity. It's not done by majority by diesel. So if you want to replace coal technology with baseload energy that makes sense, especially considering the advances that they're continuing to make, and we're going to see this in June, the advances that they've made in smaller, more efficient energy coming from the uranium and the power supply that they're using. If you want that in Minnesota, you have to vote for this. And again, I'll reiterate it and I'll close with this. Again, this isn't building anything. This isn't doing anything other than letting the investor-owned utility we know be able to use this as part of their integrated resource plan going forward and having it part of the conversation. They may never do these reactors, these small nuclear reactors. But why don't you want to be pro-choice today? Why don't you want to be pro-choice to say, listen, we can take this technology, this new technology can be something that we can have here in Minnesota. That's all we're asking here. And I'm glad that Senator Matthews has brought this forward. Thank you, Madam President.
Senator Dibble.
Thank you, Madam President. Senator Osmek almost got me there with that pro-choice argument. Would have been another one of those moments, that Dibble-Osmek moment on the floor. Thank you, Madam President, members. I appreciate this debate, and I respect the fact that there are simply different perspectives on this subject in this chamber, and those are sincerely held perspectives on the subject of nuclear power. I'm persuaded by the arguments that nuclear power simply takes so much longer from the time a nuclear power plant is proposed to the time it's actually built and is up and running, and in that amount of time, it incurs so much more cost versus clean and renewable sources of energy, up to 7.4 times more cost. And in fact, a number of nuclear power plants have been proposed and not even been seen through to completion and have cost ratepayers so much money. And nuclear power plants, there are 3 examples in upstate New York that require ongoing subsidy for operation. Those are dollars which then would be kept away from the ability to build more clean and renewable sources of energy. And as Senator Marty discussed, there are unsolved problems with respect to waste that perpetuates for tens, if not hundreds of thousands of years. We've seen the crises in other countries around that, both with civil unrest and other kinds of unrest, as well as with natural disasters. The risk of meltdown. Nuclear power is not benign in terms of carbon emissions, and the mining operations are definitely not benign with respect to public health. There's a great deal of trouble with lung cancer that occurs in mining operations. So, Madam President, members, because of the time it takes, the amount it costs, the risks that are associated, it just simply doesn't meet the moment that we're in, which is a crisis that is looming with respect to climate. And I'm so glad the majority party is paying attention now to the issues of carbon and climate. First I've heard of that in this chamber, so that's awesome. However, if we really are concerned about the intermittency of wind and solar, what has been shown to be cost-effective is the emerging technology around storage, much more cost-effective and addresses these issues of intermittency. So thank you, Mr. President and members. I would encourage a no vote on this bill.
Senator Isaacson.
Thank you, Mr. President. As I listen to the arguments that are going forward on this bill, I'm not sure. I don't understand how we can have a discussion about this if we don't acknowledge the reality of what nuclear waste is and our inability to do anything with it that's productive. And until we're having that discussion, I don't know how we have a discussion about nuclear power, right? Even if it's just small amounts or large amounts, the reality is that we have nothing to do with that. We have no plan on how to manage that. And that waste is not going away, not in our lifetime, not in 100 generations from now. So why would we continue to authorize more of that? It doesn't make sense to me. And I think that this argument about climate change is a false narrative when it comes to this. The reality is that you may lower carbon, but you're just replacing it with something else. The goal is to get rid of it entirely, not replace it. And that's the problem. So, folks, I hope we can vote no on this. It's a real kind of bizarre red herring argument. I've listened to this now. I was on the Energy Commission and the other committee and the other body, and I remember these same arguments coming up, and they weren't true then, and they aren't true now. It doesn't make a lot of sense why we'd even have this as a part of the conversation when we know we have no way of managing it. Thank you.
Senator Senchum.
Thank you, Mr. President, members, and thank you, Senator Matthews, for bringing this bill forward. Members, I've been here 20 years. I've heard this argument, this debate on, and it's sort of a kind of a cat and mouse political thing through all those years. But I would say, members, that this is really becoming serious. We all know we're heading towards a decarbonized world, a decarbonized state. Our communities are decarbonizing. That is the direction. Yes, coal is certainly a present source, but it's not a future source. Natural gas is a present source, but it's not a future source. Wind and solar are coming along, but they're just a small portion of what our menu is right now to drive our houses, our economy, the state capital, and so on and so forth. It's not enough right now. It will grow. We know that. It will grow. But it can't grow beyond storage. We do have nights. We do have nights without wind. Can you imagine, members, the size of a battery that you would need to power the needs of a Minneapolis, St. Paul, I don't even care, Hayfield, at night, based on wind and solar when the wind isn't blowing? We talk about energy storage, and yes, it's coming. Batteries are coming to a certain limit. Certainly hydrogen is coming to a certain limit. Most of the hydrogen is probably going to be used in transportation, probably not as a battery. And so where are we, members? And I was here in 2004, the last day of the session, and there were members, a couple of in this room right today, that were here wearing flap jackets and so on. We started at 11 o'clock that day. Final day of session, we had the grand plan put together to end the session that day. That entire day was filibustered on the basis of what are we going to do with the nuclear storage at Prairie Island? Are we going to renew a contract that would allow that to extend or not? That took us right into midnight, right into special session. So I know the emotions of this. I've seen it, I've experienced it. As a new member back in 2004, it was pretty amazing to listen to the arguments and the emotions of that evening and that day. It was something I'll never forget in terms of my Senate experience. So all that is to say, members, that we need another, this is so trite, we need another tool in the toolbox. All we're talking about here is an addition to the menu. We're not talking about a Prairie Island, we're not talking about a Monticello, we're talking about small nuclear reactors. 50, 100, in this case, I believe it's 100 megawatts is in this bill. That is not terribly big, but it's an important part of the menu going forward. And we need it. And we all know that without it, as we take coal and even as natural gas becomes harder to permit in this state, that we are heading towards an energy crisis, if we're not there already. Already today, we're talking about brownouts, now I don't think we're talking about blackouts yet, but this is getting serious, and it will continue to get more serious. Members, we are talking about an idea and only asking to talk about it. It may never be built in Minnesota. Granted, nuclear power is expensive, but it's also consistent. And I go back to this battery idea. How big a battery does it take to run an evening, an overnight in Minneapolis, St. Paul, whether it's a hydrogen battery, a lithium-ion battery, or there's other kinds on the market as well that are coming along. But that is a huge, huge battery. We need nuclear power as part of this menu, at least to have a conversation about it. So members, you think about how you're going to vote on this bill. I don't think it's any longer a cat and mouse game as far as just the politics of this. I think it's real. It's important to Minnesota going forward. We're going to have a decarbonized state, certainly going forward. There's no question about that in my mind. It may be 25 years from now, it might be 30 years from now. But that is a direction. And I don't think we can go in that direction without nuclear power as part of this menu. And by the way, talking about managing the waste, this is a manageable problem. We can manage nuclear waste. We can't manage blackouts, brownouts. We can't manage nights in Minnesota without adequate electricity. We just can't do that. So pick your choice, members, but let's give nuclear power a chance. Let's at least be able to talk about it. Let's make it part of the menu of Minnesota. I'd certainly urge a positive vote on Senator Matthews' bill. and thank him once again for bringing it forward.
Senator Gazelka.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, Senator Senjum, well said. I think we all agree that we want to aim towards clean energy. It's how we get there and the consequences of not also making it affordable and reliable that particularly affect people on the lower spectrum of income. And if we don't pay attention to that, the rising cost of energy can be a real problem for people. And I'm sure that a lot of people would rather have heat than some of the decisions that we make, or gas for their car, or whatever. And so as we're moving forward, Senator Matthews, thank you for moving this ball. I can't believe that we don't even want to talk about it. We all agree that we want clean energy, but how do we get there? And we can't just eliminate natural gas, clean coal, and just have wind and solar and wonder why things aren't working well. And so I love that Senator Frentz is on board now. Thank God for that, Senator Frentz. Way to go. And we'll let's do this together. In the end, Minnesota should lead the way on this. And so I'm a strong support of this. Let's vote green. Thank you.
Senator Marty.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Gazelka, I like your comment about affordability, but again, that's why I wonder why your entire caucus voted against our amendment to try and make sure that if we go ahead with nuclear power, that they couldn't bill the customers ahead of time, but we do it the way we do every other kind of power plant, where the utility takes the risk, their investors make the risk, and only when you sell power you do it. The reason is because it's not going to make it an affordable option. Nobody's going to invest in it. It's so expensive. Don't want to debate the senator who sits behind Senator Eaton over there because you're in the chair right now. But I did want to comment on a couple of points you made. First of all, you said, why not leave it to the PUC? Because they'll make sure everything is done right, that it's affordable, that the other issues are addressed. And I'll just point to history. Because once, many years ago, the Minnesota PUC rejected a nuclear power proposal. The power company at the time, NSP, built one in Wisconsin anyway with the permission of the Wisconsin PUC. Our PUC said no. And Minnesota ratepayers, when it failed, when they shut it down after spending $100 million or something on it, our ratepayers were forced to pay for it anyway. The PUC didn't protect us against that. Even though they tried to say it wasn't a good deal, we still didn't get the protection. If we're not going to pass some restrictions here at the legislature saying they can't bill us for those unfinished projects, the PUC is not going to protect us. So that's one of the issues I'd say. You can't say, oh, just turn it over to the PUC, they'll do it, because even if they do rule that something is unwise as an investment, that doesn't protect us. And finally, Mr. President, your point earlier about all forms of power generation generate waste, and you pointed specifically to nuclear, to wind turbine blades that do get replaced in time. And there is a difference. The turbine blades, we don't have to store them well underground and protected for tens of thousands of years because of plutonium in them. We don't have that problem. It's a different nature of waste for nuclear power. The bottom line is we are talking about this. Senator Senjum says we're talking about this. Well, we should talk about it, and we are talking about it. We can continue to talk about it without repealing the moratorium that's protected ratepayers all these years. And yes, if it's going to be a solution to climate, show us. Prove it. We've never done that with nuclear power. We just keep saying, oh, they've got it. It's right around the corner. We've been waiting for decades for that. I supported Senator Matthews' bill to do a study, but that's different than repealing the moratorium. I urge you to vote no.
Secretary will give the bill its third reading.
Third reading, Senate File 4082, a bill for an act relating to energy.
Third reading. Final comments, Senator Matthews?
Mr. President and members, thank you so much for the excellent discussion. Members, most of our baseload generation is in its end-of-life phases. It's going to be closed down or phased out in the next decade or so, and there is not a good plan in place to replace that energy shortfall. And I've told that to Xcel Energy and power companies that have brought their plans. There are still gaps in their future projections that they don't have answers for right now. And I don't think that is wise planning to be doing if we want to avoid having brownouts and blackouts be a regular part of our feature. Right now, we have roughly 25 megawatt of wind capacity built in this state, but the generation that it's producing right now, and this is a pretty good day for wind energy outside, is about 80 to 8,500 megawatts. It's running at an average of about 30% efficiency right now on a good day. What do you need if you need to go through a 3-day polar vortex in the middle of January when the wind's not blowing and the sun's not shining? We rely on those base load energy sources to keep the heat on, to keep the lights on, and in some places, to even save people's lives. We need to have a plan for strong, secure baseload generation ongoing. This bill is an effort to let one of these tools be in the toolbox moving forward. Some of the arguments about the safety inadequacies and costs are simply not correct. I would urge members to be willing to come look at this. Go out on this trip that you, Mr. President, have been putting together. Some of these safety arguments just show that you haven't done the research into what some of these facilities are able to do and the advanced security features that they have put in them. I've marveled at some of the designs that I've seen that have been laid out to me that are just ingenious in my opinion. Now, will they work here in Minnesota? Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I don't know. But the door is not even open for them to come ask the question today because this moratorium is in place. And the question's been raised several times about waste. I know that in the umbrella of advanced nuclear technology, there are efforts underway to see if a system can be designed to reprocess some of the waste that we have. And members, that would take care, that could be a solution to this waste issue that we have in Minnesota today. And if we put this carve out into the moratorium, we can open the door and be ready to go through and bring this solution to Minnesota if it makes sense, if it passes the certificate of need and all of the other standards that we have in our regulatory system today. We can open the door to let that be available in the future. My favorite quote from our Energy Committee this year was when we were discussing this and we had a nuclear professor from MIT remotely testifying at our committee. And he made a statement that I wrote down. He said, if you are serious about dealing with climate change and you still have a nuclear moratorium in your state, then you're not actually serious about dealing with climate change. This needs to be a tool in the toolbox, members. Maybe it will be used, maybe it won't. It still needs to meet the strong regulatory process that we have here in Minnesota, but it's time to open this door. It's time to let the tool be in the toolbox and let this be evaluated to see if it makes sense in Minnesota. So with that, Mr. President, members, I thank you for the discussion and urge a yes vote on the bill.
The Secretary will take the roll on final passage of Senate File 4082. I call on Senator Friends to report members voting under Rule 40.7. Senator Friends.
Thank you, Mr. President. I report Senator Bigham votes aye.
Bigham votes aye. Senator Friends.
I report Senator Eakin votes no.
Eakin votes nay. Senator Friends.
I report Senator Fateh votes no.
Fateh votes nay. Senator Friends.
I report Senator Latz votes aye.
Latz votes aye. Senator Friends.
I report Senator Putnam votes aye.
Putnam votes aye. Senator Friends.
I report Senator Rest votes no.
Rest votes nay. Senator Friends.
And I report Senator Wickland votes no.
Wickland votes nay. I call on Senator Jasinski to report members voting under Rule 40.7. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Anderson votes aye.
Anderson votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Chamberlain votes aye.
Chamberlain votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Lang votes aye.
Lang votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Tomasoni votes aye.
Tomasoni votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Rarick votes aye.
Rarick votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Rosen votes aye.
Rosen votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Mr. President, thank you, Mr. President. Senator Miller votes aye.
Miller votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Coleman votes aye.
Coleman votes aye. All members having voted with the desire to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 45 ayes and 21 nays, Senate File 4082 does pass in its title agreed to. Next bill on the agenda, House File 2919, number 14 on general order, Senator Curran.
Thank you, Mr. President. House File 2919 is really a small technical adjustment in the Board of Accountancy. Currently, what the bill does is it adds the ability or the term expired to the conditions in which the Accountancy Board can reinstate a license. What it does is it allows them to administratively reinstate a license versus having an automatic revocation just for an expiration. It doesn't remove any of the terms and conditions of the ability to revoke if they deem necessary. It just allows them to move administratively and apply the fees necessary in their consideration for reinstatement without having an automatic revocation. With that, members, I appreciate a green vote.
Discussion of House File 2919. Seeing no further discussion, the Secretary will give the bill's third reading.
House File 2919, a bill for an act relating to certified public accountants.
Third reading. Any further discussion? Seeing none, the Secretary will take the roll on final passage of House File 2919.
Yeah, we're in 237.
I call on Senator Jasinski to report members voting under Rule 40.7. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Anderson votes aye.
Anderson votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Chamberlain votes aye.
Chamberlain votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Coleman votes aye.
Coleman votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Lang votes aye.
Lang votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Thomasoni votes aye.
Thomasoni votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Rarick votes aye.
Rarick votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Rosen votes aye.
Rosen votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Miller votes aye.
Miller votes aye. Senator Jasinski. Call on Senator Friends to report members voting under Rule 40.7. Senator Friends.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Bigham votes aye.
Bigham votes aye. Senator Friends.
Senator Eek.
She already voted.
As I said, I just want you to know that Senator
Okay.
Bigham has voted aye.
Senator Friends.
Senator Eakin votes aye.
Eakin votes aye. Senator Friends.
Senator Fateh votes aye.
Fateh votes aye. Senator Friends.
Senator Putnam votes aye.
Putnam votes aye. Senator Friends.
Senator Rest votes aye.
Rest votes aye. Senator Friends.
And Senator Wickland votes aye.
Wickland votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Sengen votes aye.
Sengen votes aye. All members having voted with the desire to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 64 ayes and no nays. House File 2919 does pass and is titled agreed to. Next bill on the agenda, Senate File 908, number 11 on general orders. Senator Weber.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senate File 908 addresses the costs associated with tax forfeiture properties. If a tax or if a property is forfeited due to the failure to pay taxes, it technically is forfeited to the state of Minnesota. However, our counties are the ones that are charged with administrating the property, cleaning up the property if there's demolition costs, if there's asbestos, whatever the case might be. And it doesn't matter if it's residential, commercial, an old school, even old dump sites. And so, unfortunately, however, there's very few funds that are available to the counties to help cover these costs, which at times can be very, very expensive. And so what this bill does is that it allows the county boards, upon a resolution, to put the money from the sale of those properties into a fund, and from there they can pay their costs of cleanup. That will ease the financial burden on them, and if at the end there is still money left over after they have paid for those costs, it will be divided between the local units of government as is currently allowed for in legislation. And so that is the bill. I would ask for your support. Thank you.
Discussion and amendments to Senate File 908. Seeing none, the Secretary will give the bill its third reading.
Senate File 908, a bill for an act relating to state lands.
Third reading. Any further discussion? Seeing none, the Secretary will take the roll on final passage of Senate File 908. I call on Senator Jasinski to report members voting under Rule 40.7. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Anderson votes aye.
Anderson votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Chamberlain votes aye.
Chamberlain votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Coleman votes aye.
Coleman votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Lang votes aye.
Lang votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Thomasoni votes aye.
Thomasoni votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Rarick votes aye.
Rarick votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Rosen votes aye.
Rosen votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Miller votes aye.
Miller votes aye. Senator Jasinski.
Senator Senjum votes aye.
Senjum votes aye. Call on Senator Frentz to report members voting under Rule 40.7. Senator Frentz.
Thank you, Mr. President. I report Senator Eakin votes yes.
Eakin votes aye. Senator Frentz.
Senator Fateh votes yes.
Fateh votes aye. Senator Frentz.
Senator Putnam votes yes.
Putnam votes aye. Senator Frentz.
Senator Rest votes yes.
Rest votes aye. Senator Frentz.
Senator Wickland votes yes.
Wickland votes yes. Senator Frentz. No. Senator Jasinski.
Thank you, Mr. President. Senator Pratt votes aye.
Pratt votes aye. All members having voted with the desire to vote, the Secretary will close the roll. There being 65 ayes and no nays. Senate File 908 does pass and is title agreed to. Final bill on the agenda today, Senate File 2861, number 23 on general order. Senator Dornick.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Mr. President and members. This is the short call substitute teacher bill. This is a little familiar because you got to hear it last year, but first I'm going to start out reading a headline from the newspaper, Star Tribune. Substitute teacher shortage has school districts reeling. Across the state, school administrators are grappling with growing shortages of substitutes, making it increasingly difficult for classroom teachers to call in sick, squeeze in unnecessary training, or slip away for emergency. It's a crisis, says one teacher. It's another layer of stress for everyone. Sounds like a headline from paper just in the last year? Not so. This was back in 2014. So this issue has been going on for quite some time, and I'm hoping this bill will get some traction and get to address that issue that we're having. A little background on this bill, as I said, it came from a school administrator from Austin, Minnesota. I wrote this bill approximately 3 years ago, and I had the privilege of carrying it last year. First he came to Representative Mueller and brought it to her, and she introduced it and brought the Yellow Jackets to me, and I brought the bill forward, and it got bipartisan support. Had Senator Hoffman was on last year, and had a robust debate on the issue. It's a 3-year pilot program is what it was, to give a little more flexibility to the local schools and for the superintendents and school boards and administrators to be able to hire teachers without a license, but they still need to qualify under the Tier 1 licensure. So we're not just sticking just anyone in there. They still have to have a background check, and so that bill actually went through the House committee and was laid over for possible inclusion in the omnibus bill. We brought it in the education bill, and I actually talked with both the chairs about including it. It didn't make it. So definitely had some traction last year, but just didn't quite make it. So Representative Mueller continued to work with Pelsby to try to get some compromising language. She worked very hard, and the bill we have set before us right now, Senate File 2861, is that negotiation that they got. So it has, I'm just going to tell a little bit about the bill before I do have an amendment, but the first section 1 and 2 is with Pelsby's language, and Pelsby can issue a short call substitute teaching license to an applicant that submits a joint application with school districts or charter schools with the following qualifications. Number one, they holds at least an associate's degree or equivalent, is enrolled in the state-approved teacher's preparatory program, or has been employed as an education support personnel or paraprofessional within the school district or charter schools for at least 1 year. So they would, of course, pending a license or background check. That's their language. That's section 1 and 2. Section 3 is the language that Mr. Raymond, who is now a superintendent, came up with, and we've worked on it this year with Pelsby and with the Education Committee. This allows a school district or charter school to hire a short call substitute teacher with the following qualifications. They meet the professional requirements in sections 122A.181 or the Tier 1 licensure, or has been employed as an education support person or paraprofessional with the school district or charter school for at least 1 year. This requires the school districts to report to Pelsby. A criminal background check has been completed. The person meets the professional requirements in paragraph A, and the person has knowledge and skills to provide instruction in the content area the person is teaching. It also requires the school districts or charter schools to report any complaints against the hired under this section. So with that, I'd like to offer the A14 amendment, Mr. President.
Senator Dornick moves the A14 amendment. The Secretary will report the amendment.
Senator Dornick moves to amend Senate File Number 2861 as follows, page 3, line 16, delete. This is the A14 amendment.
To the A14 amendment, Senator Dornick.
Thank you, Mr. President. Members, this amendment is a little bit of cleanup. In the committee, Pelsby had a concern with data privacy, so we kind of addressed that issue. And also, there's a couple other minor changes. One was the immediate, if there is a issue with a substitute teacher, there's a complaint that they immediately have to report that to Pelsby. The other part would be the date change, being it's a 3-year pilot program. This just pushes it out to June 2025. So with that, I'll stand for questions.
To the A14 amendment, Senator Kunish.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm wondering if Senator Dornick would take a question.
He will yield. Senator Kunish.
Senator Dornick, on your line 1.3 in your amendment, it's asking to delete statute 122A.18 and insert statute 123B .03. Can you tell us what you are deleting and what are you are replacing that with, please?
Senator Dornick.
So yes, the original bill, Senate File 819, had that background check, which is the background check that the schools do for school bus drivers, coaches, and so they do that test, so that background check. So that is what we're replacing. But you have to remember that this is a pilot program. Section 2 is Pelsby's option, or the option, so the schools have an option. That is where they get a license, or they can use Section 3. So there's no obligation to the schools to use these. So that, to answer your question, the original was the 123, which the schools can do that. It's a little quicker, and it is the background check that they use.
Senator Kunish.
Thank you, Senator Dornick. Members, I think it's really important that you understand the significant difference between these two. The first one, 122A.18, is the thorough background search on any substitute teachers. This is the one that Pelsby has to do. They do a national search, they fingerprint, they look for any previous misconduct, and as well as fingerprinting and those backgrounds. They actually go into the FBI national database to ensure that our students are not subjected to any harm that could possibly happen. I think you should all have received an article that I asked to be handed out about a former substitute teacher that was sentenced to 40 years in prison for torsion. And it was a Carver County man who was sentenced to 480 months in prison, followed by 25 years of supervised release. It reflects the heinous nature of the defendant's crimes. It's a crime that can victimize any child, and the FBI is absolutely determined to continue working with partners like schools. They will continue to look for predators like this that might affect our children. This substitute teacher was a paraprofessional, so not a licensed educator, engaged in a scheme to obtain sexually explicit images and videos of minors and adults by using false online personas. He threatened to disseminate the images and videos of his victims in order to extort more images and videos. And over the course of a number of years, not just one or two, he victimized 42 people, including at least 23 minors, some of whom he knew from the school district where he worked. Members, the reason that we have the statute that requires Pelsby to do these in-depth background checks on our students or on our substitute teachers or teachers is to do just that. Make sure there are not predators that are going to be able to move from district to district, preying upon our most vulnerable children. Instead, this amendment replaces it with a much milder general background search that is basically just used for volunteers and unlicensed employees. So members, if you were to vote for this amendment, you would be creating a situation where pedophiles, predators could so easily slip into our school districts. And I think that is the last thing that we really want to do. I'm sorry, Mr. President, would Senator Dornick yield for another question?
Senator Dornick will yield. Senator Kunish.
Thank you. Senator Dornick, my other question that I have on this is your line 1.8, where the school hiring authority must, as part of the hiring process, obtain the short call substitute teacher's informed consent for Pelsby, basically, to release the candidate's private data to the school district or charter school under this section. From what you said, when a candidate decides that they would like to apply for this position and they have to sign this form saying they'll give that private data to Pelsby, if Pelsby does not is not the one who is licensing this individual, they don't have the authority then to disseminate that information to other school districts or to other states where somebody who might want to do harm to individuals, whether they're students or other work people. So how is it, or do you think it's a good idea that even though Pelsby receives this information, they don't have the authority to share the information? And if not, then what is the point of even doing that?
Senator Dornick.
Thank you, Mr. President, and Senator Kunish for the question. So as through this process, I have been transparent all the way through. On this bill, this amendment you've had for quite some time. And that's why I gave that to you, because I wanted to work it through and not have this battle on the floor. I wanted to work that out with you. I talked to Senator Uyghur, quite often, was in good faith, worked hard to get this through. And so it's kind of frustrating that I'm not a person that likes to what's the word? I like to work things out one-on-one best I can, and I'm fine with this if that's the way you want to do it, but a little disappointed in the conversations we've had, and that this now is being brought out, because the data privacy that was brought out in the conference committee was brought up by Pelsby. And so it's like, well, how can I fix this? And so this was an answer to fix this problem. And so that's why it's in there. This is a request, from my understanding of Pelsby and from the council, to get this in there and to make it a win-win. So that's why it's in there. And that's what my understanding of what it would do. And that's why it's in there. So the school district communicates with Pelsby. Pelsby said they could not bring that information back because of this data privacy. So this is in the bill so Pelsby can communicate back with the schools. So that was the intent. As far as the background check, I mean, we talked about that too. And with that, I guess I would be willing to go back to the old background check, because I didn't, we talked about this about a week or two on Monday. The bill was going to be presented, and you kind of gave me a heads up and questioned me on why I had the 122A in there. And so to be consistent with what we were trying to do, it was my understanding that your recommendation was to have the other one. So, so I'm a little confused on what you're proposing with this bill. But I want to last say that the school districts, the superintendents, school board members, teachers, I have called many, talked to many, and they supported Section 3. So I'm confused why that it's so difficult for so many years not being able to come to a conclusion. So I'm really trying hard to try to have peace in the valley. And it feels like, I actually told this to the only one time that I met with one of the Pelsby representatives. We talked after the committee hearing, and we had a nice visit, and I told him quite honestly, it feels like I'm playing a shell game, and the ball keeps getting moved to a different shell. It's very frustrating. I'm a new member and very try to do things. I think people know my reputation, and so I guess my question to you, Senator Kunish, is if I change the background check, is that something that would bring a little bit more peace in the valley?
Senator Kunish?
Thank you, Senator Dornick. And I know that you have worked long and hard on this and have been really, really collaborative in asking us to review and preview some of these suggestions to make this bill better. I just want you to know that having been a teacher for 25 years, I'm really well aware of the substitute teacher issue that we're experiencing right now, and we've been experiencing for a long time. And I know that districts are suffering and teachers aren't able to take the time that they need away from their classrooms because there isn't a substitute teacher. But that doesn't mean that we should compromise on the safety of our students. And that's what this amendment would be. I have not seen this amendment until just today, and so it took me a little while to go through it and understand what was happening. I would be very surprised, and I don't know, maybe you can let us know if Pelsby actually signed off on this amendment that you have here, because, you know, at the end of the day, members, under this amendment, A14, the BCA background check is completely removed from the process, and that really kind of surface background search is implemented. And it's the only background that would be completed for these substitute teachers that are coming in. And I don't know about you, but I want to know that every person that's in our school has gone through that very thorough search, not just locally, but at a state level, at a deep level with the FBI, and at the national level. I'm afraid that this amendment, members, would absolutely compromise the safety of our students. I am convinced that it would. If this was a really good amendment, Senator Dornick, I would absolutely accept it and not have a problem. But I do feel that I cannot accept this amendment as it is. It's just letting too much uncertainty through the doors of our schools, and it just still needs to do a lot of work. So, members, not only do I not accept this amendment, but I would really highly suggest that you vote no on this amendment. And, Mr. President, I would like a roll call.
Roll call requested, roll call granted. Senator Dornick.
Mr. President and members, so Senator Kunish, I want to table this bill and we'll work on this more. So,
Senator Dornick moves to lay the bill on the table. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, the motion prevails. The bill is laid on the table. Moving to the 13th order of business. Without objection, the following senators will be excused from today's session. Senator Rude from 11 a.m. to 3:15 p.m. Senator Pratt from 11 to 11:30 and from 3 to 3:30. Senator Westrom 11 a.m. to 11:30. Senator Goggin 2:30 p.m. to the end of session. Announcements. Senator Gazelka.
Mr. President, I move the Senate do now adjourn until Thursday, May 19th at 11 a.m.
To that motion, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, motion does prevail. The Senate is adjourned.